trick. Take the chapstick, put it on your lips, crack a smile, adjust my tie. Know your boyfriend, unlike other guys. Why would you lie about how much coal you have? Why would you lie about something dumb like that? Why would you lie about anything at all? First the window, then it's to the wall. Little John, he always tells the truth. Check your passport, it's no trick. Take the chapstick, put it on your lips, crack a smile, adjust my tie. Know your butler, unlike other guys. Why would you lie about how much coal you have? Why would you lie about something dumb like that? Why would you lie about anything at all? First the window, then it's to the wall. Why would you take my conversations? Show your plans at the United Nations. Little John, he always tells the truth.
All right, welcome to another night of Bold Like a Leopard. I know it's been a while and that many things have happened since we last talked. And look, it's been a very rough journey for most people through this very complicated time. And if I had the answer for how to get out of it, I don't think that I'd be live streaming it on YouTube. I think I'd find a better and more effective way to get the message out. But here we are. However, if you're not watching this on live stream, if you're watching this on replay, I urge you to find it on my BitChute, Rumble, or Odyssey channels and support me on Big Tech, because the window for free expression on YouTube is rapidly closing because of topics like this, where just simply exploring a health topic can be seen as a dissident act, as some sort of disruption of the system, unfortunately. And I'm not here to give any medical advice, first of all. I wouldn't pretend to have the knowledge to tell you which treatment you should seek for whatever illness, but we have to acknowledge that in the current atmosphere, medical cures and treatments have become a source of political and media intrigue. And it's very tragic, because there's plenty of people who could simply benefit from the best medical advice tailored to their specific situation, regardless of what belief system they adhere to. So the reason we're talking today is because of the firestorm regarding the ivermectin treatment proposal. And the person that has been at the center of this, how else? Now that the Donald is no longer in the news so much, is Joe Rogan. Okay? And I for the life of me, I can't understand why people in the media think that it adds to their credibility to go after Joe Rogan. First of all, if you don't think that Joe Rogan is making a good health decision, how does it affect you? He's a guy who gained his his popularity through Fear Factor, as my wife reminded me, and through The Man Show, the second iteration after Jimmy Kimmel's, and through, what's the other thing he does? His podcast, of course, and from being an MMA commentator and trainer, I believe. So people who are up in arms about what Joe Rogan is doing have to put this into perspective, that the more attention you give to someone who you think is doing something that's disruptive to your viewpoint, you're actually hurting your own cause. If you think ivermectin is so awful of a solution to having a COVID infection, and you hear that Joe Rogan, who is the most popular podcaster in the world, or at least in the United States, and you say, well, instead of just coaching people to take the solution that I think is the best, I'm going to focus on how Joe Rogan is taking a horse dewormer, and you think that that's going to convince people to take your course of action, you're an idiot. You don't know how to persuade people. You don't persuade people by going after the white whale of the podcasting industry, right? And this is what NBC says. Joe Rogan says he has COVID, took the widely discredited drug ivermectin. This is from NBC News, right? This isn't from Rolling Stone, which we'll get to Rolling Stone, but this isn't from Vox. It's not from one of these other very, very obviously clickbaity publications. It's from NBC. And they're saying podcast host Joe Rogan told his millions of followers Wednesday that he has COVID-19 and used ivermectin, a drug typically used on livestock, that health experts have urged the public to avoid. Rogan hosted the immensely popular Spotify podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, posted a video to Instagram explaining he tested positive for the coronavirus following his return from a live show Saturday. He said he had fevers and sweats, and that he, quote, threw the kitchen sink at the illness. His treatments included monoclonal antibodies and ivermectin. Rogan said, ivermectin, which is not an antiviral drug, is generally used to treat or prevent parasites in animals such as horses. And here you see Mr. Thumbhead himself, Joe Rogan.
Hello, friends. So I got back from the road Saturday night, feeling very weary. I had a headache, and I just felt run down. And just to be cautious, I separated from my family, slept in a different part of the house, and throughout the night, I got fevers and sweats, and I knew what was going on. So I got up in the morning, got tested, and turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pak, prednisone, everything. And I also got an NAD drip and a vitamin drip, and I did that 3 days in a row. And so here we are on Wednesday, and I feel great. I really only had one bad day. Sunday sucked, but Monday was better. Tuesday felt better than Monday, and today I feel good. I actually feel pretty fucking good. That's the good news. The bad news is we have to move the Friday show in Nashville. It's going to move to Sunday, October 24th. So that will be the new Nashville date. My apologies to everyone. Obviously, there's nothing that I can control. It is what it is. Crazy times we're living in. But a wonderful, heartfelt thank you to modern medicine for pulling me out of this so quickly and easily. And my love to all of you. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, so what else is there to understand from this video but for the fact that one of the things that Joe Rogan, or maybe a combination of the things that Joe Rogan tried, helped him to overcome a COVID infection within 3 days. Okay? And shouldn't people just be happy? Like, who gives a fuck whether Joe Rogan got healthy by having some OJ or, you know, going through some sort of sweat lodge treatment or any other way that he got healthy? I mean, is the idea here that we should be indignant over someone getting healthy through an unconventional way? Or should you just let it roll off your back, right? Or possibly consider his solution if the solution that you've been taking hasn't been working. So it says here, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration last month urged people to stop believing misinformation claiming the livestock treatment would help cure COVID, saying it saw multiple reports of patients who have been hospitalized after, quote, self-medicating with ivermectin intended for horses. So here's the thing. Nobody said that Joe Rogan got the ivermectin that was intended for horses or that he self-medicated. It's possible that he got it on doctor's advice. So, or that he had it recommended from a friend who has medical background, right? He probably has several friends who are, he's a friend of Dr. Drew, who's a doctor, right? So, and even Chris Carl, who's one of the followers who's followed this channel for a while, has said, Nobel Peace Prize winning ivermectin, but I didn't take anything, and most African countries had less deaths than blue states, and they take the malaria drug HCQ, which it's actually HCQ plus, I believe, the Z-Pack, which is what Rogan actually mentioned, the zinc supplement plus hydroxychloroquine. So these are solutions that you should consult with a physician on whether they're appropriate for you, because you could have a situation where you would have an adverse reaction to it. And therefore, you shouldn't take the advice of Joe Rogan, but you should definitely ask your doctor if perhaps that's something that you could take, right? Just because somebody did something and they had a positive outcome, that doesn't mean that you should imitate them, but you should at least inquire about it. And that would be the logical way to react to a very sticky healthcare situation, right? It's the same idea when if you have, for example, diabetes. There's people who take a number of limited options regarding treating diabetes, and you don't get to pick and choose as well as you would like to, but you can't just be pigeonholed into one state of mind, one solution, right? And we all know that the real solution that the media and that the authorities want people to pursue is vaccination. And I've said since the vaccination issue came up that, and I haven't really talked about it here, but I've said several times to people that I know that if your doctor has recommended for you to get the vaccine, whichever vaccine, the only thing that you should consider is get maybe a second opinion, read through whatever they prescribed for you to see if maybe they missed something. But it's not as if you should just reject it as a solution either, right? There's people who are of advanced age. They don't have many years left to enjoy. And vaccination could, emphasis on could, be their ticket to, being able to enjoy their life as opposed to staying in the house. But it shouldn't be the one-size-fits-all solution to everything. There are people like Joe Rogan who see themselves as, first of all, they're not in the target demographic that would require vaccination, right? And they also they're much healthier, and they work on their immune systems. They're very conscious of their own health, and they seek a different opinion, and it's fine if he's taken ivermectin and the Z-Pack and he got better. It doesn't mean that you have to blow up the story and make it seem as if he's trying to get Americans to take this medication without a doctor's say so. And at no point in that video did you see Joe Rogan say that he's giving medical advice. It says here, the agency clarified that FDA-approved ivermectin tablets meant to treat people with certain conditions caused by parasitic worms, as well as tropical formulations used for head, lice, and skin conditions like rosacea, are different from the drug used on animals. So here NBC is admitting that it's not only that it's possible, but it's actually probably likely that Joe Rogan did not take horse dewormer, right? Ivermectin tablets and topical formulations for humans have, quote, very specific doses that are significantly smaller than the doses meant for animals. Patients who overdose with ivermectin can experience nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, low blood pressure, allergic reactions, dizziness, problems with balance, seizures, coma, and even death, according to the FDA. Rogan has more, and this is really why they published this. The last line of the story, there are a few more paragraphs here, but this line here is why they really published it. Rogan has more than 13 million followers on Instagram, and his podcast is the most streamed program on Spotify. So the real reason they're going after him is because people listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he's incredibly popular, and people like to hear him and what I forget what that guy's name is. Obviously there's a guy Jamie in the studio, but I'm thinking of that other comic, Johnny Bravo or whatever his name is, who comes into the studio. They like to hear them bullshit, and they like to have what's his name, Alex Jones, come in every once in a while and blow a stack on Rogan's program, because people like to be entertained. It doesn't mean that because they're listening to Joe Rogan and his cast of misfits talking on their podcast that they're going to do everything that he says. Chris says Israel is pushing the fourth booster while Sweden had less deaths than New York covered up. So that's interesting you mentioned that, because my family, most of my family lives in Israel, and I actually was speaking with one of them today ahead of our holiday, and he's definitely, he's under the illusion that here in the U.S. the COVID issue is more of a problem. But the fact of the matter is, it's quite the opposite. We have a lot more freedom of movement, or at least where I live, and where he is, he can't really leave the house that much. And this is a country where vaccination has been very aggressively pushed, and certainly civil liberties have been trampled upon. It's exposed a huge gap in the system of civil liberties for Israeli citizens, something that I think is beyond what I ever thought it would be. And people have been remarking, they were like, I can't believe that this could happen in Israel. Like, people could do this to their own people. And what I find is really the problem is that just because people are of the same group as you, in this case, a religious/ethnic group, it doesn't mean that they have your best interests in mind. There's corrupt people who they get into positions of power. There's the illusion that the cream rises to the top. And I don't think that it holds true. A lot of the people who get to top positions, it's like the grease rises to the top. That's really what you seem to see in many cases. And it's certainly a sad situation. There is a sad situation in many of these countries where there was forced vaccination as opposed to letting people make the decision for themselves. A place like Sweden, by the way, which is a little surprising that Sweden has been like this during the entire pandemic. But there's certainly reason to be displeased with what's been happening, regardless of what country you're from. So he was also, this is Rogan, he has also previously been criticized by public health officials for spreading misinformation about COVID vaccines. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's leading infectious disease expert, called Rogan, quote, incorrect for saying young people do not need to be vaccinated. Fauci said they should absolutely get vaccinated because they're not only risking contracting the disease, but also spreading it to those around them. So whose statement do you think is more irresponsible here? that Joe Rogan is saying that he does not believe that young people should necessarily get vaccinated, or Anthony Fauci, who, without examining the specific healthcare situation of the patient, is making a blanket statement that all of these people are all across the country that they should be getting vaccinated. Which one do you think is the less responsible position? I think it's pretty clear. Fauci continues. So if you want to only worry about yourself and not society, then that's okay. Fauci said here he's using guilt. He's saying, so you don't want to take the vaccine? Is that because you don't care about the people around you? He continues, but if you're staying to yourself, even if I get infected, I could do damage to somebody else, even if I have no symptoms at all, and that's the reason why you've got to be careful and get vaccinated. End quote. Rogan later said he was not anti-vaccination and added that he should not be the source of medical advice as he isn't a doctor. So he's already said that. He said 2 months ago, or whenever this was, that he is not giving medical advice, right? I'm not a doctor, Rogan said, according to the BBC in April. I'm not a respected source of information, even for me. So what they're trying to do here is to make him look like some sort of bumbling idiot. But the fact is that this has nothing to do with whether it's good medical advice or not. You have a person who's talking about his own experience. He's talking about his own impression of the news. He's somebody whose job is to comment on the news. Part of commenting on the news is to comment on the latest health news, right? If there was a new diet trend and Joe Rogan wanted to comment on it, and he was to say, the South Beach diet, I think, is a great idea. Should he be censored because certain people are not, conditioned for the South Beach diet? They'd have adverse reactions to it. I think you would find that to be a very, very draconian way to apply the censorship of poor medical advice. But here we are. We're trying to conflate Joe Rogan talking about his own experience having COVID and how he treated it and the effectiveness of the treatment that he had with him giving medical advice to everyone. And it's just pathetic. You have, this is from Fox. So they say, excuse me, Rolling Stone is forced to issue an update after viral hospital ivermectin story turns out to be false. So this is besides what happened with Joe Rogan, okay? So just be aware, beyond Joe Rogan, they're really going after the ivermectin. And it's pathetic because a lot of people have already been vaccinated. I imagine some of the people who are taking the ivermectin or HCQL zinc treatment, they may already be vaccinated and they just want relief. So it says here, the Northeastern Hospital System released a statement contradicting the story. So I was reading this in the car earlier. Rolling Stone was forced to issue an update to their viral story about Oklahoma hospitals being overwhelmed by patients who overdosed on the drug ivermectin after the doctor they cited was contradicted by the hospitals he referenced. On Friday, the Liberal magazine published testimony from Dr. Jason McElhiey, who told a local news station that hospitals were being overrun from patients overdosing on ivermectin, which resulted in other patients waiting for treatment. McElhiey claimed the situation was so bad that gunshot victims were being neglected. Now let's start from the fact that usually if somebody comes in with a trauma injury as opposed to a medicinal issue, they might be put in a different triage ward. This is something that you might know if you've ever been to an ER, that they don't all get the same treatment. Now, yeah, if there's really an overflow, maybe they would put the medicinal patients where the trauma patients might be, but I would find that to be a very rare situation, okay? But he's saying, yeah, this is a rare situation. So McElhiey continues, the ERs are so backed up that gunshot victims were having hard times getting to facilities where they can get definitive care and be treated. The story, which originally appeared in Oklahoma's KFOR TV news, was widely shared by reporters, including MSNBC anchor Rachel Maddow. So what you're gonna probably have to understand here is that the message is that Oklahoma is such a messed up place that you can't even have these crazy hicks coming and getting their gunshot wounds treated because too many of their friends are overdosing on ivermectin. So who bit the bait on that? Because she thinks people in Oklahoma are probably, they're barely able to peel their eyes away from their cousin before they get into some sort of gunfight and then treat it by knocking back an ivermectin like it's Alka-Seltzer. She says, quote, patients overdosing on ivermectin backing up rural Oklahoma hospitals and ambulances. The scariest one I've heard of and seen is people coming in with vision loss, he said. So, fellow MSNBC left-wing anchor Joy Reid also promoted the story during her show on Friday, repeating McElye's claims. Emergency in one rural Oklahoma town is being overwhelmed by people overdosing on ivermectin, the horse deworming medication. It's gotten so bad that gunshot victims are having to wait to be treated. She said the story was also shared by New York Daily News, Newsweek, The Guardian, and Insider. However, the Northeastern Hospital System, which McElye works for, issued a statement regarding his association with the hospitals reported in the story. The NHS revealed, while McElye, quote, is affiliated, end quote, with a medical staffing group, he has not worked at the location in question for 2 months, nor has he treated any ivermectin overdoses. Although Dr. Jason McElye is not an employee of NHS Sequoia, he is affiliated with a medical staffing group that provides coverage for our emergency room. With that said, Dr. McElye has not worked at our Salisaw location in over 2 months. NHS Sequoia has not treated any patients due to complications related to taking ivermectin. This includes not treating any patients for ivermectin overdose, the statement reads. Furthermore, the NHS insisted that patients are not being turned away for emergency care, in contrast to the recent reports. All patients who have visited our emergency room have received medical attention as appropriate. Our hospital has not had to turn away any patients seeking emergency care. We want to reassure our community that our staff is working hard to provide quality health care to all patients. Yada, yada, yada. The Rolling Stone later published an update to the story, to the top of the story, which repeats NHS statement. Critics slammed the magazine for publishing what appears to be a false story. Independent journalist Glenn Greenwald tweeted, the only reason Rolling Stone is calling this an update as opposed to what it so plainly is a retraction is because liberal outlets know that their readers don't care at all if they publish fake news as long as it is done with the right political motives and goals. Another guy, Fox News contributor Joe Conca, tweeted, Rolling Stone misspells correction or retraction. And a further one, Washington Free Beacon reporter Chuck Ross wrote, Rolling Stone proving it did not learn its lesson from the UVA rape hoax disaster. That by the way, so just so I can remind people, if you've been like reading my stuff or following me for a while, the rape on campus story is one of the reasons I started writing about current events. It's because of how egregious that fraud was. And I think many people should go back and revisit that story and other recent stories of that time, such as the Mattress Girl case, because it's clear that these people, they wanted to have the story regardless of whose lives were ruined. So Chris says, I have an older friend with several comorbidities from my small town that got hospitalized with a coof. She was the only one in the CV wing that wasn't vaxxed. Right, so, there are plenty of people that are vaccinated that do get hospitalized, and there's people certainly who are unvaccinated that get hospitalized, and unfortunately, we are going to see, I think in the future, new types of misinformation regarding this depending on how events transpire, right? There's reports now that people are being reported as being unvaccinated because they don't have the booster shots. So understand how disingenuous that is, because a lot of the booster shots, I believe, have only been available for the past few weeks. And it's unclear to me whether they are provided for free or not, or whether you need to pay for them. So, yeah, you have people reacting to that. Yeah, it could be that somebody just called up Rolling Stone and said, yeah, I hear about these ivermectin overdoses, my friend, Ed, I call him Mister, he was taking in his ivermectin, and, he suddenly, he started to puke all his oats up, and he had to run out of the stable, his house, and go to the hospital. So I can certainly see Rolling Stone, knowing how awful their editorial standards are, getting taken for a ride on this one. Lastly, before I close, because we do have other stuff to do tonight in this house, it says here, so there are studies that show that in certain countries and situations, ivermectin has been used as an effective treatment. It says here, this is from Bangladesh. It says, a 5-day course of ivermectin for the treatment of COVID-19 may reduce the duration of illness. Now, these are a number of doctors over there. Bear in mind, I'm not trying to, boost the medical system of Bangladesh, because I've never been there. I don't know much about it. But this is published through the National Institutes of Health. If they have such an issue with these studies, then they ought to maybe limit the public's access to them through their own website and order that this be published elsewhere, which maybe I'm making a bad suggestion, because that would technically be censorship. I think the National Institutes for Health should allow controversial treatments to be read about on their website, and I'm happy for it. But then you can't have the CDC and all these institutions, CDC, FDA, turn around and say, oh, there's no evidence that ivermectin is effective. No, some people say that it is effective, right? If it wasn't effective, what do you think? They pulled it out of their ass? It's like they found a rabbit's foot or something that they think it could, on the night of a full moon, help you get over an ailment. No. These are people, they have tried it. They find that it's effective. It may not be effective for everyone. That's sometimes how medicine works, that there's certain cures that work for some people, and some doctors recommend them and others don't. This is from, not sure which country that it is, but it also says potential use of ivermectin for the treatment and prophylaxis of SARS-CoV-2 infection. So the conclusion was, in the view of the available evidence, okay, and I haven't read this yet, the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance recommends the use of oral ivermectin for both prophylaxis and early treatment of COVID-19. Further well-designed studies should be conducted in order to explore the efficacy and safety of ivermectin at low and high doses, following different dosing schedules in both the short and long-term treatment. So the conclusion here is that, yes, the available evidence says that it could be effective. It doesn't mean that it will be effective. It doesn't mean that if you take ivermectin and your symptoms don't improve, that you should continue to take it. It doesn't mean that you should place implicit trust in this medication to be your cure-all for every issue regarding this ailment. But you should keep an open mind that ivermectin, along with other different treatments, could help you. And that's about it for tonight. I hope that you and your family stay happy and healthy. I wish you a good, happy Jewish New Year. if you are Buddhist or whatever other religion, that you're also included. Christian, Scientologist, Russian Orthodox Christian. You got any other religions back there? If you're Nexium, the Jains. Thank you. I got a suggestion out back there. Happy New Year to you, and a happy and healthy New Year. And don't buy all of this ridiculous, sensational propaganda that just tries to capitalize on the popularity of Joe Rogan in order to gain clicks. So have a good night. Please follow me through my newsletter. The newsletter link should be the first one in the description if you're not signed up yet. You can also find me on all these other links below on Gab, Minds. I don't really use Parler anymore. You can find me on BitChute, Rumble, and Odyssey for alternative video hosting. And you can support me financially through Subscribestar. And have a great night.
Check your handbook, it's no trick. Take the chapstick.